Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are taking a fascinating and really complex intellectual shortcut. We're going right into the 3-pound headquarters of your nervous system, the human brain.
hmm
We've guided our analysis today using a stack of pretty intense neuroanatomy references, but we're also digging into some truly cutting-edge physiology studies.
We are, and those studies really challenge what we thought we knew.
They really do.
So for you, our dedicated learner, our mission is, well, it's specific. First, we need to master the fundamental vocabulary,
Okay.
splitting the central from the peripheral divisions. Second, we're building a geographical map of the brain. Where do things actually live inside your skull?
And the third piece.
And third, we're going beyond the textbook to explore the surprising physics behind how neurons actually transmit signals.
I love that. But before we get into the structure, let's just pause for a second and appreciate the protection this organ gets.
It's incredible.
The central nervous system, so the brain and spinal cord, it's housed within a literal suit of armor, the hard bones of the skull and the vertebrae.
And that's just the first line of defense. Inside that bone, you have 3 layers of specialized membranes. The meninges,
Acting like padding.
exactly, internal padding and barriers. And on top of that, the whole fortress is bathed in cerebrospinal fluid, which is basically a hydraulic cushion.
Wow.
It's the ultimate redundancy system for our most critical hardware.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Define the basic landscape. The whole network splits into 2 main centers.
Right, the central nervous system, or CNS, and the peripheral nervous system, the PNS.
And the CNS is the master controller.
It is traditionally defined as the brain and the spinal cord.
Mhm.
But what's fascinating here is that that definition is actually, well, it's incomplete.
How so?
The CNS technically also includes the retina, the optic nerve, which is cranial nerve 2, and even the olfactory nerves and olfactory epithelium way up in your nose.
Wait, I have to stop you there. You just said the CNS is a fortress inside bone. Why is the olfactory epithelium, which is, basically in direct contact with the outside world, considered CNS tissue?
It's all about the connection. It's considered CNS because its neurons connect directly to the brain. There's no intermediate collection of nerve cells, no ganglion,
Ah, a direct line.
a direct neural highway. And that's huge in pharmacology. It's one of the few ways to potentially bypass all those protections and get drugs to the brain.
That is a critical detail, a real aha moment for understanding drug delivery.
It is.
Now let's talk about what this tissue looks like. Gray matter versus white matter. What's the difference?
This is key to understanding the organization. Gray matter is where the processing happens. It's made of neuron cell bodies, dendrites, glial cells, capillaries, the calculation centers.
And I heard it's not actually gray.
That's right. Because of the huge blood supply it needs, it's actually more pink-colored when it's, not preserved.
So if the gray matter is the processor, then the white matter has to be the connectivity.
Exactly. The long-distance highways, it's mostly axons, those long fibers, and they're wrapped in myelin.
The white, fatty insulation.
Think of it like the plastic coating on a copper wire. It just massively increases the speed of the signal.
And how these two are arranged tells you where you are in the CNS.
It's a major clue. In the brain, the gray matter is on the outside. The cortex and the white matter, the cables, are buried deep inside.
But in the spinal cord, it's flipped.
It's completely reversed. In the spinal cord, the gray matter forms this inner butterfly core, and it's protected by a thick outer shell of white matter.
So the structure really reflects the priority.
Totally. The brain needs max processing surface on the outside. The spinal cord needs to protect its core while running high-speed cables up and down the exterior.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, let's move from the map to the actual tour. Section 2, the brain surface. We're looking at this wet, spongy, 3-pound mass. What are the big 3 parts we see from the side?
You see the huge dominant structure, the cerebrum, sitting on top. Tucked in at the back, you see this sort of cauliflower-like structure, the cerebellum. And then leading down is the stalk-like brainstem.
The cerebrum surface is, it's incredibly folded. All those wrinkles, why?
It's all about maximizing surface area. You have to fit all that cerebral cortex into the limited spaces of the skull.
And we have names for these folds.
We do. The bumps are called gyri, and the grooves are sulci. If a groove is really deep, we call it a fissure.
And those deep grooves, the fissures, are how we divide the cerebrum into lobes.
Exactly. The key landmark is the central sulcus. It divides the front from the back. Everything in front of it is the frontal lobe.
A CEO of the brain.
That's a great way to put it. It handles voluntary motor movements, planning, problem solving, all that high-order executive function.
And right behind that central sulcus.
You hit the parietal lobe. This is where you register the world through touch. Pain, temperature, pressure, it's all processed there.
Okay, then down below we have the temporal lobe.
Right, under the lateral fissure. That's primarily your center for hearing, for auditory information. And then way in the back, the smallest lobe.
The occipital lobe.
Dedicated entirely to vision.
Let's pause on a hidden gem. The fifth lobe, the insula.
The insula, Latin for island. It's literally a piece of cortex that's buried deep inside the lateral fissure.
Why is it so interesting?
Well, it's involved in emotion and consciousness, but most memorably, it contains the gustatory area. It's the primary center for taste.
So its buried location might mean its functions are, what, more foundational?
That's a good way to think about it, yeah. Deeply integrated with our core survival stuff.
We can get even more specific. Let's talk about the two functional strips right on either side of the central sulcus.
Yes. Following Brodmann's map, immediately in front of the central sulcus is the primary motor cortex, the precentral gyrus.
That's where voluntary commands originate.
And right behind the sulcus is the somatosensory cortex, the postcentral gyrus. That's where all that conscious sensory information arrives.
And this is where the idea of the homunculus comes in, right? The distorted body map.
That's a great connection for you to make. The organization is somatotopic, meaning specific body parts map to specific areas on those strips.
But the map is all out of proportion.
It's highly distorted. Areas with fine motor control, like your hands and face, or extreme sensitivity like your lips, they take up a huge amount of cortical real estate.
Okay, so we've mapped the surface. Now let's peel it back and look at the deep structures, the internal highways. Let's start with a cut right down the middle.
A mid-sagittal cut that immediately reveals the core of the brainstem. You've got the diencephalon, then the midbrain, pons, and medulla.
And the diencephalon has two key parts, the thalamus and hypothalamus.
Exactly. The thalamus is often called the inner chamber. It's the great relay station.
The editor.
That's its primary job. It's a big, heart-shaped structure that relays and edits almost all incoming sensory information, except for that olfactory nerve we mentioned. It decides what gets through to the cortex.
And just below it, the tiny but mighty hypothalamus.
This is the brain's internal regulator. It controls all the essential stuff that keeps you alive. Body temperature, hunger, thirst, sleep cycles.
And it has those mammillary bodies.
Right, which are part of the critical memory circuitry.
Now, what about the highways that connect everything? The most obvious thing you see is that massive white bridge between the two halves of the brain.
That's the corpus callosum, an enormous bundle of axons, hundreds of millions of them. It makes sure the left and right hemispheres can talk to each other and work as one unit.
We also have the deep structures of the limbic system, integrating memory and emotion.
Absolutely. You have to highlight the amygdala, Latin for almond, critical for fear, emotional states, emotional memory.
And next to it, the hippocampus.
Greek for seahorse, essential for forming new memories. It works closely with the fornix, a fiber tract that connects it back to the hypothalamus.
And don't forget the basal ganglia.
Can't forget them. Deep collections of neurons, the caudate nucleus, putamen, globus pallidus, that are key for smoothing out voluntary movement.
And just for orientation, what about the brain's plumbing, the ventricles?
They're very handy internal landmarks. It's a system of fluid-filled spaces, the third and fourth ventricles, and the paired lateral ventricles.
They sprout like antlers, I think I read.
That's a great description. They sprout like antlers from the third ventricle, producing and circulating that cerebrospinal fluid we talked about earlier.
So now we have the map. The next logical step is understanding how this command center actually issues orders.
Right.
This is where we get the split between the voluntary somatic nervous system and the involuntary autonomic nervous system.
The somatic system is our conscious link to the world. Voluntary control of muscles, conscious sensations. It uses acetylcholine, or ACI, to send those signals.
And the autonomic system is the mysterious automatic pilot.
It is. It regulates all your internal organs, glands, blood vessels, all the stuff you don't consciously manage. And it operates like a finely tuned seesaw.
Between two systems.
The sympathetic nervous system is the gas pedal. It mobilizes the body for action. That's your classic fight-or-flight response.
So increased heart rate, dilated pupils, digestion stops, survival mode.
Precisely. And it does this using norepinephrine or noradrenaline. Balancing that is the parasympathetic nervous system, the PSNS. That's the brakes.
Rest and digest.
Rest and digest.
Yeah.
It conserves energy, slows the heart, stimulates digestion. It signals safety and relaxation. And it uses acetylcholine.
And a key player here is the vagus nerve.
It's vital. Cranial nerve X. It carries the vast majority of those parasympathetic, those brake signals to the heart, lungs, and abdominal organs.
Which is why there's so much focus on vagus nerve stimulation for stress.
Exactly. People are trying to find ways to consciously hit those parasympathetic brakes.
Got it. And just to remind everyone about the cranial nerves cyanin 2, olfactory and optic, they're technically CNS structures, not PNS.
That's right. They have that direct connection.
And none of this works without power. The blood supply.
Absolutely critical. It comes from two main systems, the vertebral and the internal carotid arteries.
And they connect at the base of the brain to form that incredible loop, the circle of Willis.
It's a masterpiece of biological engineering, a safety feature. If one artery gets blocked, the others can often compensate and keep blood flowing.
Okay, so finally, let's zoom all the way down. From the big structures to the physics of a single nerve signal.
To the synapse.
Let's start with the classic textbook view of neurotransmission.
The classic view is pretty simple. An electrical impulse, the action potential, zips down the axon. It arrives at the end and triggers the release of chemical neurotransmitters into the synapse, that little gap.
And those chemicals are like keys.
They are. They travel across the gap and bind to specific receptors on the next neuron, like a key in a lock, and that relays the message.
And the messages are basically go or stop.
That's the essence of it.
Yeah.
They're either excitatory, like glutamate, telling the neuron to fire up, or they're inhibitory, like GABA, telling it to quiet down.
GABA is the big one for inhibition, right?
It's the superstar, the most common inhibitory neurotransmitter. That constant dance between excitation and inhibition is what creates, well, everything. Thought, action, perception.
That's the view we've had for decades. But this is where the new cutting-edge stuff comes in. You said the electrical signal isn't traveling alone.
Right. And this is what's truly mind-blowing. The empirical evidence shows the action potential isn't just an electrical chemical event.
What else is it?
As that electrical impulse propagates, it's accompanied by two simultaneous physical events. One is a mechanical displacement. The membrane actually swells a little bit.
It swells.
It deforms. And at the exact same time, there's a synchronized axoplasmic pressure pulse that travels along with it.
So the signal is, it's a multi-physical thing. Electricity, chemistry, pressure, and physical movement, all linked.
That's the emerging model. Sometimes it's called the Soliton model. It suggests that the signal isn't just about ions moving because of voltage. It raises the possibility that the ion channels could be opened by mechanical impact too.
Mechano-electrical activation.
Exactly.
That completely changes things. If voltage is just one trigger and physical pressure is another, what's the core question researchers are trying to answer now?
They're trying to figure out the precise coupling forces. How tightly linked are these different waves? The electrical, chemical, pressure, and mechanical. Understanding that could change everything we know about how neural signals work.
That's an incredible journey. We went from the fortress of the skull to the map of the brain to its command structure and ended with synchronized mechanical and pressure waves moving down a single axon.
It just shows you the complexity at every single scale. And what's cool is that even simple fMRI data backs up this deep organization. Recent studies show that linear models can classify what your brain is doing, like language or motor tasks, with up to 92% accuracy.
So those anatomical landmarks we map, they really are associated with unique, identifiable networks of activation.
Precisely. Functional specialization is real. And it relies on these areas maintaining this incredibly complex, high-speed communication.
So, what does this all mean for you, the learner? If we accept that the nervous system communicates not just with electricity and chemistry, but also with these synchronized mechanical and pressure waves, here's a provocative thought for you to explore. What might this mean for future non-electrical, purely mechanical ways of understanding or even influencing things like memory and emotion, especially when you think about the role of structures like the amygdala and hippocampus?
That is certainly a powerful question to consider until the next deep dive.
Indeed. We'll see you next time.